Hello, it's Richard here, and I'm doing another Kate Bush review. You might remember that I did a review of Kate Bush Remastered Parts 1 and 2 when they were released in, I believe it was November last year. And I also did a review of the Kate Bush Remastered pop-up shop in central London down near King's Cross, which I visited before Christmas and bought a few goodies from, and that was set up in aid of Crisis, the charity Crisis. So I believe it did well. I haven't seen the figures of how much money they've raised, but I'm sure they did very well. And a number of people asked me in the comments, would I be doing reviews of Kate's albums? So I've decided to start a series of reviews on Kate's albums. I know plenty of other people have done them, but we all have our own point of view, I guess. And it's equally valid in relation to a piece of art, which is what I regard Kate's albums to be. And I'm not going to do them in chronological order. That may annoy some people, but I'm going to do them in order of personal favourites. And I've decided to start with the iconic album from 1985, I hope you can see that, Hounds of Love, with its two very iconic, I'm going to use that word a lot because she is an icon, people, with its two very recognisable covers. This is the CD version from the remastered collection, so it also has some lovely artwork inside. I'm going to be as concise as I can. I'm going to try not to waffle too much and give you my flavour, my personal feelings around each track, and share a few thoughts with you. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm just going to say it's January at the moment, it's the end of January, and it is the time of year to listen to beautiful, engaging pieces of music, and indeed concept albums, albums you can immerse yourself in and be taken on a journey, which is something that I love. Hounds of Love, released 1985 to critical acclaim. How old was I? I would have been 18, and I was discovering Kate's music very fast. I'll just tell you a little story. I was, like many teenagers of age 16 plus, unemployed, had no money, and I borrowed a Kate Bush album, Never Forever, from a friend. And of course I'd heard Kate Bush, she was on my radar, but I'd never invested any money in her albums. The minute I heard Never Forever, I was hooked, and I, no kidding, spent the next few weeks spending my dole money on Kate's back catalogue, and also getting people that I knew to tape albums and send them to me, and I immersed myself. And then of course Hounds of Love came along. It was regarded at the time as a bit of a comeback album because we'd not heard anything from her since The Dreaming. The Dreaming was probably considered to be a bit weird, although it's one of my favourites as well. I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's an immensely interesting suite of songs. And then Hounds of Love came bursting onto the scene, and I remember the television advertising. It was hailing the album to be one of the most important albums of 1985. And of course we were introduced to, I think, the first single, which was Running Up That Hill. Let's go through the songs track by track on the first side. Now, Hounds of Love is divided into two. You've got the first side, the A side, which is Hounds of Love, and you've got the B side, which is titled The Ninth Wave. So side A is a collection of songs that aren't necessarily linked up, but they do share common themes around love, fear, empathy, childhood. There's various themes. We start with Running Up That Hill. Now, Kate herself has talked about this song many times, and very basically it's about this idea that the character in the song makes a deal with God to swap places with her lover, her partner, who is male. And it's around the idea that if you could swap places, if a man and a woman could swap places, they could essentially experience what it was like to be the opposite sex. And I find this really interesting to think about in 2019, because to me, when I listen to it now, the way it speaks to me is, to me, it's around the idea of having empathy for anybody, be them male, female, gay, straight, transsexual, disabled, and what it would be like to step into that person's shoes to really fully understand how they feel. You know, the famous line from this song, "It doesn't hurt me. Do you want to feel how it feels? Do you want to know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you want to hear about the deal that I'm making?" And we all know the chorus, you know, "If I only could, I'd make a deal with God and I'd get him to swap our places." And I think in today's society, with all the talk about fluid sexuality, gender identity, it talks to me on that level now. You know, before you judge somebody, step into their shoes. Think about how it feels to be that person. And then maybe you can fully understand their point of view. It's interesting, isn't it, to reflect on these themes 30 odd years later, when gender identity was starting to be really played with in the mainstream. You know, gender bending bands, people like Boy George, Marilyn, bands like Soft Cell, who were really, really bringing alternative lifestyles, it sounds crazy, into the foreground, you know. So for me now, reflecting on this song, that's kind of what it means to me. It's got this driving beat to it as well, as though she is struggling to make it up that hill. You know, it's this power, this momentum. And of course the video was iconic as well, with this amazing dance routine. If you've not watched it recently, go and watch it. I believe it's on Kate's channel on YouTube. And it's a very powerful piece. It's beautifully coloured in lilacs and lavender colours and pinks and sunsets, and you know, and it plays with this idea of male and female, different identities joining together, and this beautiful dance where their bodies are entwined. You know, it's a very sensual, sexual expression. And the track builds and builds and builds to this thunderous crescendo, where it's almost like the thunder and lightning, you know, is God's voice, maybe granting the deal, I don't know. It's a very powerful track. And it's also been covered a number of times as well, and one of my favourite covers of this track is by a band called Blue Pearl. If you've not heard it, listen to it. I love it. I absolutely love that version. And it was quite interesting when I visited the pop-up shop, they were playing cover versions of Kate's music in the shop, which was really, really interesting. I really liked that. So let's move on. Hounds of Love is the next track, and that arrives with a real jerk. You know, we get this voiceover taken from, I believe, a film called Night of the Demon. It's in the trees, it's coming, and we go into this again, this relentless beat. And this is a song which talks about love and equates it to hounds that are chasing you. And I've heard Kate talk about this track in a couple of interviews. And I know she talks about the concept of being afraid, this fear of love. And the song starts from a child's perspective. You know, when I was a child running in the night, afraid of what might be, hiding in the dark, hiding in a street, and of what was following me. And we all know that childhood fear. I don't know whether you played hide and seek in the street when you were a child, but I did. And we'd hide behind cars and in bushes, and that kind of excitement of being found, but also that little bit of fear that you're hiding from something, you don't want them to find you. So it starts with this child's perspective and then moves into the adult perspective of maybe being fearful of the things that love brings. Because, you know, with love comes great sadness, comes great excitement, great stimulation, arousal, all of those things. And, you know, there's also an element of wild abandonment to this song. take my shoes off and throw them in the lake, you know. Just that line, it just conjures up this sort of, oh, what the hell? I don't know, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but that's what it gives me. But in the end, it becomes celebratory, because she's sort of saying, this is what I need love. It's almost as though she's resolved this conundrum as the song goes through. So again, it's been covered. I've not really heard any covers that I really thought were great. I don't know. When I like a cover version, I like a cover version, and that's it. Most of the time I don't, especially with Kate's music, because she is the originator of those words, and I think her expression is usually the ultimate expression. The next song is The Big Sky. Now, I'm a little bit annoyed with Kate. Sorry, Kate, love, if you're watching this, and I've said that before, and I'm sure you're not. I was a little bit annoyed because I played this version. This is the remastered version. And she has replaced the album version with the 7-inch version. I find it really jarring. I was lulled into that familiarity of knowing the album so well, and I was going along with it, enjoying it, and then this version came in, it totally jarred with me, rather than, yes, it was, what? That's how I felt. I guess I'll come to accept it, or I simply won't play this version. Really didn't work for me. I thought that was a synaptic misfire. Whoever made that choice, it doesn't work for me. I apologise, sorry, but that's my personal opinion. But let's talk about the track. Kate, again, has talked about this track many times, and our reference points are the very few interviews that she's done over the years. And again, this is a thunderous track. It's very typical of beaty 80s music with these amazing rolling beats. And the song essentially celebrates the sky. And again, if you're a Kate fan, you know that she's very elemental. She talks about nature and views and being surrounded by the natural world very often. And it does reflect the sky, how the sky is very dynamic, it's changing all the time. Even on a day like this, when it's cloudy and grey, we'll have moments of brightness, and then the grey will come in again and a different light will appear, and it's always changing, and it provides all the source of light in the world, doesn't it? The sky, we get that diffused light, that sharp light from the bright sunshine, the way sun comes through the clouds, the way clouds change shape, the way we see objects, faces, animals, people in the clouds. If you're a cloud watcher like me, I love to watch clouds. So it's a fascinating thing, and it is always changing. And I know Kate has talked about the song being quite difficult. Maybe that's why she presented a different version on here. Maybe the original version that she put on the album she wasn't happy with. I don't know, we'll never know. So again, this is celebrating the sky. That cloud, it looks like Ireland. And again, it builds to a crescendo, this track, with his amazing backing vocals, wailing backing vocals. It's a celebration of the sky. It's a very positive, uplifting track. The 12-inch mix has a lot of commentary on it from different voices talking about what these different clouds look like. And there is one that says, that looks like industrial waste. So I guess it's also about the atmosphere and, a comment on how the atmosphere is changing and how it's affected by man. I love The Big Sky, but I preferred the original album version. And I do like the 12-inch version too. So the next track is a darker track, Mother Stands for Comfort. It's a very dark track, this, but it's produced in a very interesting way. It starts with a real crisp drum machine beat. It sounds like a drum machine to me. And the sounds of breaking glass, which of course we're familiar with in Kate's music because she used that in other tracks like Babushka. And the story is around an evil, murderous child who does some very horrid things, yet its mother protects the child from being found out. She knows that I've been doing something wrong, but she won't say anything. She thinks that I was with my friends yesterday, but she won't mind me lying, because mother stands for comfort. So it's a very dark little theme, and it explores the theme of the mother regarding the child to be the hunted one, not the hunter, where in actual fact it's the other way round. Am I the cat that takes the bird? To her, the hunted, not the hunter. So I love it, and it's full of lovely synth sounds, weird little drum beats. It's a unique track, and it's one that I really love. And it's a refreshing interlude from a lot of the very heavy beats on this first side. So finally, to close, it's the hugely loved Cloud Busting. Yeah, this is a story about Wilhelm Reich and his son. And Wilhelm Reich proposed a type of energy called orgone energy, and he built several devices, one called a cloud buster, which was basically a machine that could make it rain. And he also built a device called an orgone energy accumulator. Now, you can look this up online on Google. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. And I believe a lot of his research was destroyed by the government. But there are still people making cloud busters and rain-making machines, and also machines that supposedly get rid of chemtrails. So I don't know how much you believe in this, but there's lots of things attached to these theories that he had about this life force. And it's a really interesting subject, and this song is based around him. And of course there is a very memorable video with Donald Sutherland, who played Wilhelm Reich, with Kate playing the son, and it was filmed on, I believe, White Horse Hill in Oxfordshire, which Paul and I visited, and it suddenly clicked. I realised I knew the location. And I said to Paul, this is where Kate Bush filmed that video. It was quite amazing, it was wonderful to see. It's a beautiful area. So yeah, and again, this is a song which builds and builds and builds with lots of intricate chanting backing vocals, building up again to this crescendo, which finishes with this amazing sound of a train, a steam train, whistling, which just even thinking about it makes me tingle. I don't know what it is about steam trains. They have a real fascination. I guess they also play into my childhood memories of films like The Railway Children. Kate very often plays into childhood, I don't know what you'd call them, archetypes, I'm not sure. And she really looks at things from childhood perspectives very often, probably because she was virtually a child when she started this game. She was 16. So I'm not surprised by that at all. I think she brought that childhood into her work as an adult, because she explores some very adult themes as well. So, and it's also a very emotional track, Cloud Busting, because it's essentially about this father being taken away from his son, and his son may be carrying his legacy. Have a listen, it's a lovely track. So that's side A of Hounds of Love, a collection of songs. Now, of course, in the old days we would have stopped, maybe put the kettle on, turned over the vinyl and started with side B. And that ritual is one that people don't have now. The Ninth Wave, side B, is a very different animal altogether. When I first heard this, I was completely entranced, confused, intrigued, curious. I was an 18-year-old boy, and I wasn't quite sure what I'd just heard. I knew there was a theme of water, because I kept being told, get out of the waves, get out of the water. This message is being driven home during the whole album. I'd heard things about witches, something that reminded me of the Crucible, which I'd studied at school, really reminded me of the court scene in The Crucible, where the girls are seeing a bird. Because again, in this album, there is a theme of this blackbird. Help this blackbird, there's a stone around my leg. There are themes of drowning. There's an Irish jig right in the middle. There are mournful, deathly sounds. On first listen at age 18, it is like a cacophony. It's an experience, and you have to work out what's going on. As with many of Kate's records, you have to work to get something from it. So let's go through it. This side of the album begins with And Dream of Sheep. This is a very mellow song with a very dark edge to it. It begins with this stark piano, little light shining. Little light will guide them to me. And we're having to work out that it seems that this person is in the water, and she's hoping not to be mistaken for a wave. If they find me racing white horses, they'll not take me for a boy, as in a buoy in American English, floating in the waves. They'll not think she's a boy. Let's hope they think I'm a person and they rescue me. She's in the water. Something has happened. We don't know what. But we do know from the artwork, she's wearing a life vest. We know that much. And she is in the water. This poor woman. I mean, it's my absolute nightmare to be involved in some kind of accident at sea and be in that water. It's always been a complete and utter fear of mine. And it sends shivers down your spine because you're realising that there is little hope for this person. And she's trying to stay awake. She is floating in this deep, dark water. It's freezing cold. And she knows that if she falls asleep because she's desperately tired and desperately wants to drop off, and she's trying to think of things to stop her from going under into sleep, because if she does, she's going to go into a coma and die. So, just thinking about it is, it's hellish. Things get worse because we go straight into Under Ice, and again we have this nightmarish vision of this person skating on ice. Cold, it's very cold, and this is prompted by these icy waters, clearly. It's very, very cold. She's skating on the ice. She sees something underneath the ice, which is reminiscent of that scene, I think it's in The Omen or Damien, I'm not sure, where the guy is under the ice. She sees this figure under the ice and realises that it's her. She's trapped underneath the ice. So she's going under the water, it's freezing cold. She's having these visions, these nightmares, and there's very little she can do about it other than struggle to survive. Absolute nightmare. And, this is all very eloquently done until the next track, when we are plunged into a complete nightmarish Salem witch trials experience. Now, I remember listening to this and being, having all these images of doing the Crucible in drama at school. She is suddenly a witch who's being put on trial. If the woman floated, she was a witch and would be put to death. If she drowned, she drowned. So either way, she's a loser. So this nightmarish vision continues in this Salem-type witch trial, which again is just horrific. And there are demonic voices, there are hysterical backing vocals, beautifully done, don't get me wrong. And then it culminates in her hearing the helicopter searching for her. We hear the helicopter go over. We hear the words, "Get out of the waves, get out of the water." And we know at this point that things are very desperate. Thankfully, we have a little bit of relief at this point, and we go into Watching You Without Me. Fantastic track, because it takes a while to understand what this track is about. And my understanding of it is this poor woman in the water has now had a vision, or has indeed astral projected back to her home, where she sees her loved ones in the house without her, because she is merely a ghost watching them. And she's saying, "You can't hear me. You can't hear what I'm saying to you." And Kate sings these backing vocals in a very muted way, so you can't quite hear what she's saying. And it's almost like she's speaking to you from another plane. It's almost like she's trying to say to her family, you know, "I'm here. You've got to help me. You've got to find me. You know, I'm dying. I'm in the sea," you know. And there is one point where the vocals from Waking the Witch, these broken up, stuttered vocals, are thrown across the track, where she's saying, "Help me, listen to me, tell them." It's really impactful and quite distressing in a way, but it's a beautiful track. And again, it has these lovely rhythms, these lovely synthesized noises, and it's quite laid back until you get this point where the vocals come in and it stutters in, where she's crying for help, and it kind of wakes you up. We get woken up again with the next track, Jig of Life. To me, Jig of Life is genius. It really is. When I first heard it as an 18-year-old, I didn't get it. I didn't really get it on the first listen. I thought, what the heck is an Irish jig doing here? You know? And you're kind of overwhelmed with that rhythm, the Irish jig rhythm. But then when you really peel back the layers and listen to the concept of the story, it is mind-blowing. It really is. I'm going to explain it, so I mean, if you don't want to hear the concept of the story, you've never heard the track before, then you can skip this bit and try and work it out for yourself, because, you know, part of the fun of listening to a Kate Bush song or album is working out what she's talking about. You have to work at Kate's songs, you know, she's not going to hand it to you on a plate. She's a writer, she's a crafter of words. She's an artist. But I'm going to tell you anyway. So, Jig of Life, it's a crazy concept. The words start with, "Hello, old lady. I know your face well. I know it well." So you've got this character that's in the water. Her future self visits, appears in a vision, however you like to call it, and says to her, "Look, you can't die because I'm here in your future. And if you die, I won't exist, and neither will your children. So you have to stay awake and survive. Never, never say goodbye to my part of your life. This moment in time, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me and to your little boy and to your little girl. And the one hand clapping where on your palm is my little line, when you're written in mine as an old memory." Just genius. Genius. Makes me tingle just to think of those words. It really does. How creative, how amazing that Kate came up with that concept. Whoa. Blows my mind, that song. I'm not going to say anything more about it. There are amazing moments in that song. We're then brought down to earth because we go straight into the track Hello Earth. And in Hello Earth, the character again is imagining being separate to the earth. It's almost as though she has again come out of her body and is above the earth, watching storms start to form over America. With just one hand held up high, I can blot you out of sight. Peekaboo, peekaboo, little earth. She's either hallucinating or she is actually coming out of her body, and her body is slowly dying. the melodies in this song are so hauntingly beautiful and heart-wrenching, and there are these very melancholic moments where these male voices sing in harmony this very melancholic chant, which almost feels like she's being sucked into the sea and the life is slowly seeping away, taking her down into the depths of the ocean, where maybe all hope is lost. And the final words, "Go to sleep, little earth." You know, it's almost like the vision is going, everything's going black, and that's it. But all done in such an incredibly beautiful, haunting way that you just can't help but get swept along with it. And I guess that describes the ocean. You know, you do get swept along with this whole suite of songs. And just when you think all hope is lost, the final track, The Morning Fog, bursts onto the scene like a sparkling splash of cold water that suddenly wakes you up like a bright light almost. And even though it's called The Morning Fog, it's incredibly bright with these sparkling guitars that are plucked and are just so sparkly and bright that you kind of come to out of this stupor. You've almost been taken into the ocean by Kate with the whole album. You've almost sunk into the depths with her, and then you're yanked out of that cold water into this cold morning where you feel you've been rescued. Has she survived the night? Has she been rescued? Has she ascended to heaven? I guess we'll never know. I like to think that she's been rescued. And I have to say, we were kind of given that impression on the live show that she was rescued out of the water. But The Morning Fog is just such a beautiful track, and it's quite short, but it's a song full of thanks. She's kissing the ground, she's telling her family that she loves them. I have an emotional reaction to this song. I'm really sorry, it just comes up. That's really silly, I do apologise. But there's so many things wrapped up in this whole album for me. So many different emotions, the fear of water, the fear of drowning, the fear of being alone, not being rescued, not being helped, the fear of unwanted hallucinations. You know, it's a whole world of things, and at the end you almost feel reborn. And she uses those words, being born again into the sweet morning fog. I feel as though I've been on a journey just telling you about those songs, and I haven't really gone into too much detail with any of them. I've just moved through them, but as you can see, you know, most of Kate's music, and I know some people are going to think, oh, for goodness sake, it's just an album. Yeah, it is just an album, and it's been created by somebody, but it's significantly fabulous in so many different ways. And it means a lot to me personally. It was a time in my life of a lot of turmoil, and music becomes a rescuer, becomes a salvation, becomes a haven, So there you go. Take it or leave it, like it or not. That is my very quick account of Hounds of Love and the Ninth Wave. Hopefully not in too much detail, hopefully not too long, although it feels like it's taken forever to do this. I'll have to edit it down to make it a bit shorter for you. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it, and there will be more to come. Not sure which one I'll do next. I'll have to think about it. So it just remains for me to say thank you primarily to Kate Bush. I know she's never going to watch this, but I'm just doing it to say thanks to her for giving us such an amazing body of work that connects so emotionally with so many people on such a personal level and an individual level. Thank you. And thank you to my subscribers and maybe new subscribers who've just joined because they're a Kate Bush fan. Thank you so much, and I do apologise for getting emotional. It was totally natural reaction. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye for now.